That's the old style ram. Original probably. We gotta get the thing off. There's a threaded hole here and a threaded hole here. And put a bolt in there. And plus put a little bit of lube around here and heat this up with a torch. Get it kind of warm, and it makes this expand a little, and tighten down these bolts. Hopefully it'll come out of there. This up. Sometimes I'll heat around it with a torch. If it's stuck on there really good. This one's not stuck on there, so. Start tightening down these 12 millimeters. And then just kind of wrap on it. As you're doing it. Now, it breaks the shoe free if it's stuck. Sometimes it hangs up on the shoe and the shoe starts coming off. The shoe will start bending, trying to come off. So you can keep from wrecking the shoe. Looks like it's free now. I'll probably be able to just pull it off. It's not worn as bad as I thought it was. This shoe has only got about 1/32 of an inch, so that's got to be replaced. This shoe is about 1/8 of an inch. Might as well do both. I want to pull this axle off. It's kind of noisy. I have a feeling this is a bad bearing, but really it's kind of hard to tell because the differential is turning and it makes noise. This is a little bit more noise than what I would expect from the differential, so I think the bearing's bad. Anyway, these holes through here access 4 14 millimeter nuts. Take off next. I got my impact driver set up with a 14 millimeter. Use that to get that nut out. I guess I'll just take it out my hand. Now, if you were extremely lucky, you'd be able to yarp on this and pull that out, but it's not going to come off this one. So there's two ways to get the thing off. One of them, I've never tried, but I've read about people doing it. So you use the brake drum. Put it on backwards. Lug nuts on, just enough threads to hold it. And you just go like this, try to get it off, but this one's not going to come off that way, I'm pretty sure. It's stuck in there really good. So anyway, I made this homemade slide puller. Basically, it's just a flat plate with the holes drilled in that match the lug bolt pattern. Put the lug bolts on. Some heavy, this is pretty heavy pipe here. It's like fits over this 1/2 inch rod, and this is like 1.5 inch diameter, solid metal. And you weld a plug on the end here to keep it from coming, and just kind of slam them back like that. There. The axle off. Bearing looks a little rusty. You hear that? It's really bad. Should be totally silent. Plus it's a little wiggly, but mostly it's just noisier than hell. Definitely bad. You gotta watch out on these plates. Make sure that when you take the bearing off, you put this plate back on. And there's a weep hole right here. When it goes in, the weep hole's pointing back aft. That's so any water that collects in the bottom here can drain out. There's a hole down here that lets it drain out the back of the brake thing. So now we got to get this bearing off of here. So I'm going to have a new one pressed on. Here's another look at the puller. I just welded a plate to the end of some 1/2 inch rod. And then these heavy pieces of pipe slide on it. And then I just welded something on the back for these to slam against. That's what gets it off. Works pretty good. It's cheap. It's called homemade slide puller. This is the weep hole. I usually take a small piece of wire and shove it in there. I was talking about where that plate goes up against that. That's for the water to drain out of the bottom end of that plate. These brake shoes are pretty worn there. These aren't so bad, but I can replace both. And there's a seal inside there. Since that bearing looked like it was an original bearing, been in there for over 30 years, I'm going to go ahead and replace the seal too. See the difference? This is a aftermarket hub, or drum I should say. It's even got some markings on it like it came out of a junkyard, wrecking yard. I don't know if that one's bad or not. Like I say, it could be the noise could be coming from the differential. You got to pull it out to look at to really find out for sure. I took the bearing out of the right side. See the weep hole on the lower left there. It's a little greasy in here, and I think it's from gear oil. I think that seal is bad. Bearing was in pretty good shape. I took my angle grinder and I cut a groove as deep as I dare without getting into the shaft on that sleeve. Now I'm going to take a chisel, stick it right in there and hit it with a hammer. Hopefully it'll just bust off. Well, I pounded on it with a chisel and it cracked it and came off. There's no damage to the shaft. Now I just got to get the bearing off. I took a bearing separator, put it behind the bearing, 3/8 all thread, set it up, and started cranking. Took a little bit of oomph, but it finally, I heard a little pop, and now it's coming off. What I should do is hook up my impact driver to a socket, a lot faster. I'm almost there now. Alright, the bearing is free. Just make sure when you put the new bearing on, you get the right shield on there. This one has the drip hole there, so it goes on with the drip hole towards the rear bumper. It's ready to take it down somewhere and get a bearing put on it. There's the bearing. You can see there's some severe pitting where the roller bearings were, or ball bearings. That's why it was so noisy. This thing would focus a little better, but hopefully you'll be able to make that out. Alright, the plan is to get that bearing on that shaft and that keeper. Make sure you have the bevel up. This bearing is a BCA Federal Mogul bearing. It's 88506-BR. I got it Rock Auto. Shipping and everything came to $21. I usually take these in with the old bearing still on them to a machine shop, and he charges me about $35 to pop the old bearing off and put the new one on, which isn't bad. Now this one I cut cut into this with an angle grinder and chiseled it till it broke, and then pulled this with a bearing puller. And normally I wouldn't do that. I would just take it in and let them do the bearing. But this time I took the bearing off. And I don't know what they would charge just to put the bearing on. I imagine $20, $25. But I'm going to try to figure out a way to get it on myself. I drilled a hole in my bench so I can drop the shaft down in through there. I think I can get it in there. And I'm going to try to press it on using that jack. But first I have to find something to go around this. So this is basically what I have. I got bearing. Don't forget to put this on. Make sure you got the one for the side of the car you're doing. I think this is going to work here. One additional thing is I need a spacer here.
The Olympic Music Festival.
It's centered in between the lug bolts.
Concerts in the bars are held Saturday and Sunday afternoons at 2 p.m.
Well, that's the plan. Yeah, it looks like it's working. Sure that gets up there, doesn't get pinched in there. I got about 3/4 of an inch to go. Started to bind just a little bit, so I repositioned the jack a little bit. Then it slid right in there. Got it in there nice and tight. Next thing it goes on is the keeper. Make sure the bevel is facing up, because that's so when you install it, it helps the seal go in. And if you have it on the other way, the seal, where it's hitting over here, it won't allow the seal to work properly. I had a car where somebody stuck it on backwards and it leaked. So anyway, I'm going to heat this up, get it fairly warm to the touch, make it a little easier to get it on, hopefully. Okay, I got the sleeve pressed in there. Boy, it took some muscle with that thing to get it down there. I had to really put some oomph into it. Mission complete. Figured to save myself $35 doing this myself. shop manual shows the bearing, the keeper, and it shows this thing called the inner or gasket. And the gasket is normally a paper gasket, and then this one out here is a thin piece of metal that's about 0.013 thick. You see how the little lip goes down there, matches the picture. A little cutout there. But most of the axles I've taken off have not had this metal type gasket. It's just had the paper one. So I've made numerous paper gaskets for these cars, and never installed these because I didn't have them when I took them out. Something else you want to watch out for is when you put the seal in the axle, you're only supposed to drive it in 5.6 millimeters. And 5.6 millimeters is 0.22 inches in. So you want to keep that in mind. You don't want to drive it all the way home. This one's a Beck Arnley 052-2136. Again, at Rock Auto, they're usually less than $5 a piece. So anyway, we want to put that seal in, and I'll probably make up something out of PVC pipe to drive it in and have a stop on it, so I won't go any deeper than 0.22 inches. Okay, this is my homemade. Just took some U-channel, welded it up. I already had a hole in it, but that hole has really come in handy. A little bit wider U-channel on the bottom for stability. It's been working pretty good with that little bottle jack. This is the rear axle seal. Beck Arnley 052-2136. And when you install it, you're only supposed to push it in to a depth measured from here out of 0.22. And so what I did is I took this pipe fitting, I believe it's 1.5 inches, I cut some of the threads off, and I ground around the diameter of this. So what I can do now is take the seal. What I can do is take the seal, press it over it, and this is ground down so it's smaller than the seal. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in here and press it in until it's at the correct depth. So when I push the seal in, this will stop it, and it'll be at 0.22 from the seal. Then I'm going to cut this off right here, so I just have something to hang on to and push it in. Seal, I had to file the threads down just a little bit so that it just kind of goes over it kind of snug. Slides over pretty easy actually. Okay, so I knocked that thing on there. It's a pretty tight fit. I'm not even going to glue it. I went around with my dial caliper set at 0.22. And I put 4 screws in it to lock it in place instead of gluing it. That way I can adjust it later if I want. Then I cut that off so I could just have a straight shot in. I took those round head screws out and put flathead screws in there. The round head stuck up a little too far. Pop this old seal out. There, run some grease around the inside of that seal. Remember, you got to make sure you put in the correct axle. There's the weep bump right there. It lines up with this hole. That's your drainage. And actually, before I put this on, I should run a wire down in that hole. And I'll do the other side of the car. And then again, make sure that drip. It's going the right direction. And make sure that hole has, you can see daylight through it, which you can, so. Support it so that it doesn't touch the seal. Work it into the differential down there. Get that plate underneath that spring before you push that bearing in. Save you a little bit of hassle. The studs should move freely. If they don't, then they've gotten out of whack. Make sure there's a flat side in the back that is up against there, up against the axle to keep it from spinning when you tighten it. We'll keep an eye out for that. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the nuts on, tighten it down just like I did the other side. It's a normal sound. That's the noise you hear is the gears in the differential. So it's kind of hard to tell when the bearing's good or bad, but there's no noise here coming from this area. Anyway, that concludes installing or replacing a rear axle bearing.